Hello friends, this is your second video of your artist book class with me, Carson Fox, at Adelphi University. All right, my friends, today we're doing more accordion structures. And the good news is that you've watched the other video with the Sweet Star accordion, so you know a lot of the stuff that's gonna help us do this a little bit faster. So I'm taking all the stuff out of my package, and today we are going to make two different kinds of accordions. Now, we didn't talk about what an accordion is, right? An accordion, as we know it, is a musical instrument that, I don't know if anyone really wants anyone to play. It's the one that goes when you push it back and forth. Because of its structure, it's like folded, right? And the air goes through that. It's a lot more complicated than that. I shouldn't be so dismissive of accordions as a musical instrument because frankly, I don't know what I'm talking about. So here we are. Let's look at our examples here, but we can see how this is sort of like the musical instrument. So this, let me see. This is the first one we're gonna make. And this has a continuous piece of paper. So it's a long piece of paper that's gonna make all of the pages. So what does that mean to us? Well, it might mean some math. If you want a certain amount of pages that are a certain size, then you're gonna have to figure that out. So let's look at what we have here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Even number of pages. That's different from our Sweet Star accordion. Even number of pages here. All right. And where's my ruler? Here it is. So what size is this? Let's see. Of course, I know the size, but you know, flip. Okay. So the size is 2 inches. Okay. Or it should be 2 inches. It's 2 inches. So 2 times 8, 16, right? So this piece of paper is 16 inches long. So let's think about that for a minute. If we needed all of our pages to be 3 inches long, right? Or wide, I should say. So 3 inches wide instead of 2 inches wide. Well, our continuous piece of paper would need to be 3 times 8, which is 24 inches. That's still a very small book. So for you to find something that will allow you to have a continuous sheet without anything glued together, you have to have a pretty long piece of paper. So we are also going to learn how to tab our paper. We're going to do each page as a tab, but one of the things you have to keep in mind with this is it can be tabbed at any point. What do I mean by tabbed? I mean glued together with another little piece of paper here. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's a tab. So this piece of paper is longer than it needs to be. This is 2 inches plus, I guess that's about 1/4 of an inch. That's what I want to say. So let's just say for the sake of our discussion, this is 1/4 of an inch. So this tab gets glued to the back of the next page. This is something that is very convenient for artists because you don't have to figure out what's going to happen on each page in advance. You can make the pages as long as you allow for a little bit to be covered up, right, for the tab, and then arrange everything after the fact. Sometimes that's better for the creative process. Sometimes, you know, you're planning things out and that's fine. You know, you don't need to worry about tabbing, but accordions are kind of nice for artists for that reason, okay? All right, so you have one long piece of paper and I've already folded it in half. And the reason I folded it was simply to get it into your envelope. But normally, this is what you start out with. So you're gonna fold this right over in the middle. Once you folded it, I want you to take your bone folder and flatten out that nice crease that you have there. It should be even as much as you can make it even, all right? Now, this is a mountain fold, right? So it looks like a mountain. We're gonna make another fold. So we've got the mountain side. We're gonna leave that up, right? We're gonna make another fold from one side to the inside of this mountain fold. Flatten that out, make it nice and flat with our bone folder, and then we're gonna do it to the other side. I'm getting my paper a little bit dirty because my fingers, I think, have glue on them from the last demonstration that I did. So forgive me. Hopefully you're tidier than me. Okay, I just folded that in again, okay? Right, so now I've got a mountain peak and 2 valleys. That's what I've got. All right, doesn't matter really which side you go to, but I'm just gonna go to this side and I'm gonna fold this in again. The reason I say it doesn't matter that much is because if you find your folds are not going in the exact direction that you want, you can always flip them. And it's really the creases that are important. So when I pull the page up, I'm going right to the crease, okay? So now I've got something that, depending on your point of view, looks like this or looks like this. And actually, I think I should have flipped this differently, but I'm not worried about it. Now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna fold that together. Let's see, I can do whatever side that makes me more comfortable. So I'm folding this over. You may say to yourself, why does she not just fold it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth like we did in elementary school when we were making fans? The reason is every time you fold, basically you've got the thickness of the paper itself you're folding against, and it ends up sort of going at a slight angle. And so it's not a nice crisp sort of stack, but rather a stack that sort of slides. All right, you can do that anyway, but this is what we're gonna try. We're gonna try not to do that. So I'm gonna fold that down. Okay, so now this is all folded. And now I'm gonna make sure that it actually folds back and forth, back and forth. And you can see, I could have been a little bit more careful with the way I was folding. You can see what I'm talking about with this sort of sliding over. I would have avoided that if I was a little bit more careful, I suppose, during the folding. But this, for such a little book and my dummy book, I'm not worried about it that much. It's not gonna worry me so much I'm gonna do it over again. So back and forth, back and forth. The first page and the last page are gonna be glued down. So you're gonna open it like this, so it's more like the mountain peaks, and these parts here and here are gonna be what is glued down to the cover. Now, in your little packet, you've got a number of things. You've got some decorative paper, and then you've got fabric. We're gonna do the fabric second, okay? So we're gonna do this first, which you already know how to do in terms of covering board, but I'm gonna walk you through it again because it's good to see things again and again. If it bores you to death, you're gonna zip through this a little bit and cover your own board, and then we'll glue this whole thing together and we will have made our first book. So this is gonna come a little bit later because we're gonna use a different kind of glue. We're gonna use the PVA, which is considerably messier than the glue stick, all right? Now I'll explain why in just a few minutes. So this is the book we're making. So we're gonna have these decorative covers. Remember from our last demo, if we can figure out the lines, which we may or may not be able to do, we want them to go in the same direction. The pretty side is down, the decorative side is down, and we're placing our Davy board right in the middle. We're eyeballing it. If we want to get really persnickety, we could measure it, but that's not really going to help you because the edges of this are going to get covered anyway, and if it's off by, say, 1/8 of an inch, it's not the end of the world. So I just traced this square, right? Now I'm going to take another one of my boards because I need this as a measuring tool. You may have noticed in your box there's an extra little like stick of this, and that's what it's there for. Sometimes when you're gluing stuff, you have to glue down, one cover, and you can't wait like this. I'm doing both of these at the same time. You can't do that for one reason or another. And so that's just used for a measuring tool, so you can see how thick your Davy board is. So I'm doing all 4 corners. I'm tracing it the only way I can so that there's a little gap here of 1 thickness of this board. So when I cut this, I'm gonna cut just to the right. So I'm not cutting on the line, I'm cutting to the right of the board, and I'm trying to approximate 1/2 of what I imagine that thickness is, okay? You'll get better and better at it, but you don't wanna cut on the line, whoop, or you're not gonna have 1.5 thicknesses of the board. That's what you need in order to cover any board, right? Right. Okay, we're gonna cut off all 4 corners, and now I'm gonna do the other one so I can zip through this, and you can too. So I don't see any lines on here, so I'm just gonna, I could figure it out, but with a little, well, actually I can tell that this is harder than that. So this tells me it goes this way. Now, if you have really thin, delicate, beautiful paper, obviously you can't put marks like this on it. So just use your common sense with that when you're making your own books. Right in the middle, tracing the square. And let me tell you a little bit about this gap business. So you know, your materials are already cut for you, but when you're going to be doing your own thing, you have to make sure that you have a piece of decorative paper, or let's say you're using the bookbinding fabric, you want it to be larger than this cover by at least a 1/2 inch, right? So I think mine is a 1/2 inch, which works proportionally, yeah, it's about a 1/2 inch, with this cover. But I think that a full inch is nice if you're doing something bigger. So what that helps you with, just gives you more wiggle room for when you put either your pages down or some other piece of paper on top of that, so that you just have a little bit more wiggle room, really, okay? It is important that you try to keep it the same. And I say that simply because when you glue stuff down, you're gonna see, unless you're really doing something tricky with that, you're gonna see where the piece of paper is, where the part is glued down. So I don't know if we can figure it out with this, because this is really stiff paper, but if this were a lighter paper, we might be able to see the edge of where that paper is. So we want it to be even. We want this to look neat and tidy. And the reason neat and tidy is kind of nice is because it doesn't distract us from looking at the content. We're not like, oh, why is this so messy? You know, the person that made it didn't care enough to take their time with making it so that I can enjoy the stuff with them. Now, that said, there are artists who are just, that's who they are. They make messy things. I think in the introduction, I showed you a book or two by an artist named Anselm Kiefer, who is a German artist who does these monstrously big, beautiful, wonderful sculptures and paintings and installations with non-traditional materials like tar and dirt and rust and tin and lead and straw. And so none of that turns out tidy, right? And that is great because his work is powerful and interesting and wonderful. So his books look just like that. They are messy, messy, messy looking things, but they contribute directly to the content of the work, which is important. If it's just messy and it just looks junky, that's no good. But if it's messy because that is the aesthetic of the work, that's a different story. So I would just want you to keep that in mind. Okay, I'm cutting off the corners again, not on the line, just to the right of the line. Snip, 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 snip. He is a very interesting artist, Anselm Kiefer, although he's getting pretty, he's not dead. He's just getting up there in the years. He's been around for a long time. He was associated with a group of artists in the 1980s called the Neo-Expressionists. And you might want to look them up. Okay, here I am. I'm going to cover my covers. So I know that the grain's going that way, that's going that way, because I can see this mark here. I've got my glue paper, right? I'm gonna put my glue stick, this is the better one, just because it's got more in it. Put my glue down, going from the middle to the outside. Right, now this is all sticky and gross, so I'm gonna get rid of this piece of paper. I'm gonna put this on a nice clean sheet, and I'm gonna plop my board down in the middle, keeping it as even as I possibly can. Now I'm going to use the paper to do the fold, because my fingers have glue on them after all, right? So I don't want to get that on anything unless, you know, I have no other choice. Oh, wait, stop. I was also about to fold this, but no. I need to crunch these little corners down where that overhang is. And I'm pushing towards the inside of the book always. So this direction, and I'm just flattening that little part. Flatten. Of course you can do this with your thumb, but the bone folder is a nice tool and you might as well use it, right? Because that's what it's there for. Okay, so now this is still sticky enough that I'm gonna fold it over. If it weren't, I just put a little more glue there. Now I'm gonna use my paper. Are you sticky enough? Put a little bit more down. Okay, now I'm gonna fold that over. without gaps. Boop. Now, if you have a gap, this doesn't meet that. The reason is because you don't have 1.5 thicknesses of the board there. And so you need to rectify that for your next ones. So no crying about this now, but fix it for the time in the future. All right, so 1.5 thicknesses of the board is gonna give me what I need in terms of these corners meeting. Putting my glue down inside like the rays of the sun. Right, thin, no big goopy spots. There it is. On a nice piece of paper, I'm putting my piece of board down. I'm gonna fold over with the paper the top, yoink, flatten it down, and I'm gonna fold over the bottom. And then the overhang, I'm not gonna forget to sort of crush those down. I can use my fingers, I did just there, or my bone folder, whatever I like, whatever I feel comfortable with. And there it is, smashed down at the corners. Now I'm gonna fold these two fellows over. You can see it's kind of flopping up there, so let me make sure I have enough glue. I don't want it to come unglued. That is bad bananas. All right, fold that over. And with my materials, I just want to emphasize, you're in charge of them, okay? So I'm folding that over. I'm telling it what to do. It's flat, it's behaving. Sometimes our materials will not behave. The paper might start curling or something like that. It's discouraging and it's hard. But you're the human in this situation. If you get really mad at it, you can just throw it in the trash can or maybe set it on fire in your fireplace, right? And start again. So just always keep that in mind as you're the artist and that this is dumb material that's meant to be your vehicle for expression and you're in charge of it. Okay, so what do we have here? We've got our pages, near, like an accordion. I have the front cover, the back cover, and just like with the first book that we made, we are going to center this in the middle. And you can see that I have designed this so that there's a little bit of a gap here, right? And that's on purpose. This is probably 1/8 of an inch, maybe. This is how I figure things out. So the height of my book is 2 inches, right? And so when I figure out the size that this board should be, how much bigger it should be, I don't want it to be grossly bigger because then the stuff inside is gonna flop around a little bit without the support that it needs. So the aim is just to make this edge slightly bigger than the book block. This is the book block, right? It's the pages of the book, and when it's pressed together, it's called the block. I want the block to be only slightly smaller. So how do I figure that out so it's consistently slightly smaller in a pleasing way? This is how I figure it out. So this is 2 inches. No, it's not 2 inches. It's 2 inches plus 1/4 of an inch. So I always add just 1/4 of an inch, just 1/4 of an inch, not a 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch. And I find that to be really nice, regardless of the size of the book, okay? So I seldomly go more than that. So 1/2 of 1/4 of an inch is 1/8, well, is it 1/8? Yes, it's 1/8 of an inch. Goodness gracious. I became an artist not because I was good at math. Okay, so I'm gonna slide this under here so I don't get glue on my other pages. Yoink. Where's my better glue stick? There it is. Glue, 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 glue. Thin, thorough coat. I'm gonna place this as well as I can in the middle. I'm not putting the glue on the cover, I'm putting it on the pages because the pages are all that needs glue. If I put it on the cover, I have no way of controlling getting glue around the areas like here that I don't need glue and having things be unnecessarily messy. If I pop this open, I can press it down some more carefully. Because I know my fingers have glue on them, I'm gonna put a piece of paper on top of this. Now, sometimes when you have very delicate material, you might want to use something that's waxy, like wax paper, or glassine to actually do this so that you don't end up marring or wrinkling unnecessarily the pages themselves. All of our stuff is pretty thick, so it's not like it's super delicate and you have to worry about it that much. Okay, one cover is on. Now I'm gonna put on the other. I'm gonna fold this so it goes correctly, and I'm gonna put a little bit of glue down on my last page with my piece of paper protecting the rest of the block. I'm gonna slide that baby out. Goodbye. And I'm going to push this down and try to get my cover to be even with the back cover. So I can't see where the piece of paper is, right? I just can't see that. So because this is a book and books generally have even covers, right? That's what I want. So if I pull it out gently, I can see, aha, it works. Now, when you're designing this, keep in mind, this part is gonna get glued down so you can't have content there, right? So you have to plan for that. So maybe this page has nothing on it, right? Maybe that's part of the plan. So this is one continuous page to make an accordion. All right, we're gonna move on to our second kind. The second kind is going to be like this. It's gonna have, a nice cloth cover. This cloth is called book cloth. And book cloth is different from any old cloth because it's got a lot of starch in it and it's paper backed. The reason it's paper backed is because if it were just regular old fabric, the glue that you would apply would seep through and give you a big pounding headache. All right, so this makes things a lot easier. You can get book cloth. You can get it from like all of the regular places like Michael's or Artists and Craftsman or Dick Blick, but the supersonic place to go is Talas, T-A-L-A-S. And the reason I say that is because they have a wide variety of different sorts of colors. Some of them are silk, some of them are textured, some of them have prints on them. So they're really wonderful. You might ask me, can I make my own book cloth? And the answer is yes, but don't. The reason I'm saying that is don't do it now. You have enough problems, right, with making books. You don't need to like jump into that pool and swim around. So just keep things simple for now. And then later, you know, you might want to do a little workshop for the center at the Center for Book Arts, which is a great resource for like 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, whatever. Workshops for specific topics like this, because there are tricks. It's not just a matter of taking some paper and gluing it down to a piece of paper, or rather gluing it down to a piece of fabric. It's not that simple. There are all kinds of things that experts can tell you on how to do this the best way that will make your life better. The Center for Book Arts is a place that I want you to familiarize yourself with anyway. Because of the way things are right now, you might not be able to go visit in person, but you definitely can go visit online. And it's the only real place that I know of that is like it. So it is a center for book arts. Mostly, you know, in terms of what they mostly teach structures and technical stuff, craft stuff. But they're great at what they do. They also have exhibitions there. They teach some letterpress, which is a way of putting type together in a Vandercook press to print along with images if you like. That's a wonderful thing to know how to do, but it's also very specialized, and unfortunately we don't have the special Vandercook press that we need in order to do that at school. So going on, that might be something that you want to do. When I was in undergraduate school, I didn't learn anything about this stuff, but I was interested in it. And so when I lived in New Jersey, I would take the train up and I'd go to the Center for Book Arts and take classes. And I took enough classes where I got really good at it, and I started making some of my artwork as artist books. And so I put together this class when I was teaching at NYU, and then I carried it over to Adelphi now, and that's how this class kind of originated. So I didn't learn how to do any of this stuff in undergraduate school. I learned how to do it on my own, and I've learned to do a lot of things on my own. That's something you have to keep in mind. You're in school now, but as an artist, you are someone who's perpetually curious and you want to know how to do things. And lucky for you, there are always classes where you can extend your knowledge. So Let's say when you're done with school, you want to know more about jewelry making or welding or cabinetry or, cabinet making. You can take courses in that, and you can take courses through your whole life. I still take courses, and I love it because I see myself, I get to be the student, and I also get to experience all the things that a student experiences that's different from what an instructor experiences. So it's nice to be on the other end, but it makes me a little bit more empathetic, I hope, to teaching myself. So I'm going to take a tiny break, turn this off, and I'm going to readjust my camera, but it's also going to be a little break for you. So if you want to go get a glass of water or something, or pause this, we're going to do the next accordion structure in just a few minutes. See you in a minute.